Did you spend your early years in front of the TV playing a game console, looking at something like this? Do you remember having to pull the cartridge out and give it a tap, blowing on it trying to get it to run? Do you remember working towards a particular boss or that level you couldn't seem to get past? Did you ever hand the controller over to an older sibling or your mum to try and get you through? I did all of these things, and I remember these moments fondly. These games were my foray into gaming, and to me, this was the very best of video games, and at the time, it probably was. Since then, video games have evolved immensely, but in a way, it's kind of like Transformer movies. We've got more of them, but are we really better off? In the gaming world, we're no longer restricted to simple 2D platformers and the like. Developments have opened up an entire world of different styles of gaming. You've got virtual reality, you've got card games, you've got hacking, and whatever this is. But today, we'll be dropping a dimension and returning to our roots to play a platformer like Days Gone Yonder. Except it's also fresh, new, and exciting. I've got the quilted pen, and I'm searching for the appropriate sultry tones as I share my love letter to one of the best platformers of this generation, Celeste. And as always, I'll be asking the question, is this game for you? Or more appropriately, does it climb your mountain? Now, I have to get this out of the way. Celeste is not her name. Despite having a girl's name painted next to a girl, who is the main character of said game, no, that's not her name. Celeste is the name of the mountain. Surely I'm not the only one here. Anyway, despite getting off to a rocky start and realizing her name is Madeline in the first few minutes of the game, it was only up from here. The first thing that you notice with this game is the visuals. It has the familiar pixel art of old, but it's done in a new way with some extra pizzazz. It's fresh and new. It's like seeing a friend you haven't seen in 20 years, but they look younger and fitter, and they're into parkour. Parkour! This game was actually developed from a Pico 8 game that two guys made together in 4 days. They liked it so much, they decided to expand on it and release it as a mainstream title. And yes, if I'm honest, I'd never heard of Pico 8 either. It's a virtual retro console with tons of short games made by budding developers. The original Celeste Classic can actually be found and played in the full release game, which feels very meta. But it's also available online. I'll leave links to the free Celeste Classic and the $15 Pico 8 console in the description. Okay, so as a platformer, the movement mechanics are the absolute core of the game. Just like pretending to be injured is at the very core of soccer. I'm kidding, I love football, and diving is only a major component, not the core. Madeline's movement abilities are simple to grasp. You can run, jump, climb, and dash in 8 different directions. The dash is like a burst of speed that can be useful in a variety of ways. You can use it to double jump, fast run, or complete your tax return. The dash also changes your hair color to illustrate you need to touch the ground before you can dash again. Imagine if you could get Google to change your hair color as a reminder. Hey Google, make my hair go blue when it's time to put the bins out. Anyway, so what do we do with our abilities? We climb the mountain. Climbing a mountain is quite difficult, or so I've read. I'm more of a grassy knoll guy, and this game reinforces the difficulty point. The level design quickly becomes tough, requiring very specific and near exact timing of actions. But at least in the main game, I never reached a point where I couldn't find a way. Usually the solution to the particular level was clear from the beginning or near to. However, it's a case of easier said than done, much like telling your 3-year-old it's bedtime. The saving grace here is that dying isn't bad. This is not Demon's Souls, where it's a punishment that could cost you an hour. Celeste resets you to the beginning of that screen and you get to try again, and again, and again. So rather than strip you down, it sort of builds you up. The game even tells you at some point to be proud of your death count because it means you're learning. So in that perspective, I have a PhD. Soon enough, you prevail, and you've improved ever so slightly along the way. So the game gives you another chance to learn, another opportunity to test yourself. This is the gameplay loop: puzzle, solution, execution, and repeat. And it's incredibly satisfying for those who enjoy practicing the execution. And it's rage quit inducing for those who don't like to fail.
Fiddlesticks.
Another thing Celeste gets so right is the feel of the controls. The feeling of moving the character is excellent. You always feel in control, and when you make a mistake, you know that it's because you made it. This is exactly how a platformer should feel. The difficulty is like an onion, and not because it waters the eyes.
Are you crying? Are you crying? There's no crying! There's no crying in
Celeste.
Okay, well, yes, maybe a little, but more so for the layers. The main game itself is the least difficult. In fact, you can turn the difficulty right down with Assist mode, which you could probably finish with your eyes closed by simply using your sense of smell. But then for added difficulty, there's the strawberries which you can collect along the way, which are sometimes hard to find and often even harder to reach. A bit like my keys when they've fallen down the side of the couch. Then for more difficulty, there are the B-sides, which are alternatives of each stage. These have more technical control challenges baked in. And then they've done it again with C-sides. This 8-hour main game can push 70 hours or more for completionists before you even start speedrunning. Do yourself a favour and don't look up Celeste speedrunning until you finish playing the game. They are so good, they made me angry at their very existence.
Why are you the way that you are? Honestly, every time I try to do something fun or exciting, you make it not that way.
Recently, the developers even added an additional chapter, which is even more difficult than anything in the original release, for those who really don't like any pleasure with their pain. Something else that helps me enjoy a good game is sound, or in particular a game's soundtrack, and on top of the tight controls and demanding gameplay is a brilliant soundtrack, which so aptly matches the tempo and mood of the stages that it accompanies. Like the visuals, it has a feeling of nostalgia to it, as it nods at previous generations, but as the visuals, this is entirely new and fresh. I am a sucker for some synth, and so I'm not disappointed here. The game's composer, Lena Raine, produced something so good that I'm actually listening to it right now as I pen this review. The game also features a surprisingly deep and real story about mental health that doesn't shy away from difficult issues. This is nothing like the airy-fairy world of Super Mario, where your biggest issue involves a visit from a sociopath turtle. This is a rather deep and powerful illustration of the darkness of depression and how it can manifest in our lives and those around us, and it can feel like a mountain you need to climb or a pit you've fallen into. This is what's so good about good artwork, that it can be doing multiple things at the same time. It can be a game, but at the same time a soundtrack, and also teaching you about mental health and what it might do to someone. I've seen this done well recently in shows like Ozark and BoJack Horseman, but it's not just TV shows that can do this, and this pixel art 2D platformer illustrates that. Satisfying controls match with sophisticated level design, a soundtrack that builds with the brilliant visuals, and a story that's deeper than anything you'd expect in a game of this genre shows that Celeste is the yardstick by which other platformers should be measured. If you enjoy these things, you need to find a console or computer and add this to your repertoire. Thank you so much for clicking on this video and watching it. I would love to hear your thoughts. If you want to help me, the absolute best thing you can do is share this video to anyone you think might enjoy it. And then if you want to subscribe and like it, you'll get to see more like these in the very near future. Be good to your friends and family. Ciao.